Welcome everyone to geohug. So today's going to be a fun session. I'm just promoting you up as panelists. Please don't be shy. Get the cameras on, get the mics on, and come on through. We've got the guys behind Money of Mine with us today. But before we do get stuck into today's session, I would just like to take this time to acknowledge the traditional lands which we're all coming from today. I live on the beautiful lands of the Gadigal of the people of the Aurora Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and future. And yes, we do have the crew behind Money of Mine with us today. So we've got Matt, Travis and JD here, and this is going to be really fun. Ask us anything chat. So please, this is not the time to be shy. Come on through with all of your questions. We'll have a really good chat with them today. But to kick things off, firstly, thank you for joining us today. It's awesome having you all on.
Appreciate it, Kirsty. We're a bit nervous because the abuse that your LinkedIn followers give us on the lead up. We don't know if we're going to cut the mustard on the geological front, but
I saw that about 5 minutes ago as well. Maybe we're not welcome yet.
Bloody shit and bricks.
Well, I think normally your audience learns something from your guests. I think it's going to be the other way around. I think we're going to be learning stuff from the people who are asking us questions, especially as it pertains to geology.
Yeah, but be gentle on us, rock lickers, please.
Be gentle. No, bring them in. Come on, savages. Let's go. But no, I was curious about your stories and sort of how Money of Mine got started. Can you give me a bit of a story there?
Oh, bloody it. Well, we've been going a year now.
12 months.
The three of us. So,
happy birthday!
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a whirlwind tour, but we're the quick story. I was doing a mining podcast before while I was in the FIFO world, and then sort of transitioned out of it, tried to make a full-time gig of it, was failing miserably by myself, and I think JD and Trav from a distance, I didn't know them from a bar of soap. You got an underground miner and two finance blokes that we wouldn't have normally hung around in our normal circles, and I think they saw I needed some desperate help and felt they could provide what was missing, which was a lot of intelligent financial credibility to the show, and it all just went from there. So we rocked up on 4th of April last year, and we're like, okay, let's hit record and talk about mining news every day. Much to JD's disappointment, because he's like, I'm not on it, am I? I'm like, JD, what the hell did you think you were going to be doing? He's like, I thought I was just doing research. So yeah, that's how it started, mate. I don't want to waffle on about ourselves too much.
No, that's heaps of fun. And
kudos to Maddie, by the way, for having the kahunas to have a crack at something, put his own voice out there into the abyss and talk nonsensically about the finance element, because I think when you do that, you open yourself up to the optionality of people reaching out to you, and heck, we actually enjoyed his content. Even like it was just fun, right? You listen to Maddie, you add him to any situation, and it just gets fun. And I sort of thought, heck, if you can make the finance component fun, there's that would be pretty special, and the rest is sort of what we've tried to do since.
No, that's awesome. I love that. You a whole year now then. So what have been some of your favourite episodes or guests? What ones have really stuck with you?
The first one that really got us going was the battle for Leonora, was the battle between St. Barbara, Genesis and Silver Lake. And I think there's might be a question later about some of Trav's shareholdings, and that pertains to that story actually. That and just really getting into the what's going on in the bloody between the bankers, the advisors, the companies, all the strategy and everything. And that was like really in JD and Trav's wheelhouse. But from that, the amount of people we met during that process, and then all other future M&A stuff that happened in the future from that point on was like, oh, beauty. And then each story, each event in the market, and like you meet one person, that forges you onto another person, and the network we've built over the last year just by, I guess, necessity, because we're like, shit, we need to get better at this every day. We need to know more. We need to know more people. And Yeah, Jesus Christ. I've got a few WhatsApp messages going around these days. I can tell you that. That was, in terms of early on, probably favourite to how it got us started. That's probably my one. Boys might be different.
I'd completely echo what you're saying there, Maddie. The amount of doors it's opened up to us is just mind-boggling. All the people that we'd sort of heard about, read about, who now speak to us, on a regular basis. Just last night we were chatting with someone till bloody 1 a.m. Spoke with them for about 3 hours, and 2 hours of that was the interview, and then we just kept going and going and going. So people have been so welcoming and forthgiving with their time. And it's phenomenal because I don't think I've learnt as much as I've learnt in the past year in any other year of my life. It's just been phenomenal. And I'm sure it'd be the same for the guys as well. It's just been awesome.
Most of these people I was used to idolise. Now I get to text message them. I just can't. I'll scratch myself just thinking about it. It's bloody awesome.
Favorite interview of mine was a recent one, Jess, and that was Nathan Stoitis. I just thought that was awesome. My mind blew open a little bit from his insight in a domain that I know nothing about, but am suddenly pretty curious about.
Metallurgy being that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm obsessed with metallurgy. So you wait till I interview a geological expert. Oh, that might be my next passion once I get past this metallurgy one and uranium.
Maybe you'll get a willing participant from the crowd today then.
Oh, Jesus. I know. I'm not going to mix up my ambitions and capability, I don't think.
So what would be some tips that you would give an explorer that's wanting to raise money?
Don't waste it on shit. Put the bloody money into the ground via drill holes. We see so much, and this is, I guess, what pertains to our brand and why we don't deal with the small cap end too much, because a lot of the podcasts out there are companies that pay to come on a podcast to share their exploration story. We don't take money from companies ever, and one reason for that now is that you want to see it go into the ground. You put that money into drill holes rather than spending over 50% of it on conferences and promotion and everything, like the G&A expenses, and you're taking shareholders' money. You want to use it wisely and try and find bloody more metal in the ground. That's what I like to see in an explorer, someone that is actually using good geology. Spend the money on geochem, geophys. Spend the money on bloody verify AI. Yeah. I'd accept that. Something that is going to yield more metal, more of a discovery, and drive your share price up via good geology rather than good promotion.
Yeah, without knowing much about geology, I'd echo Matty entirely, just maximising the probability of success and minimising any expenditure on anything dubious or nefarious. Like, for example, if there's a single thing in your annual report that's a related party transaction, like fucking red flag.
Trav's onto you.
I will literally think you're a piece of shit forever.
Oh, geez. Can we swear on this, Jess? By the way, we probably should have asked at the start.
We'll ask YouTube later. I don't know, whatever.
What I'd add sort of echoes what Travis sort of said there, and just align your incentives. If you are the one, running the company, be totally aligned with your shareholders, because that invariably leads to better outcomes than the opposite.
What's an example of that, JD? How would you align yourself as a small... Don't
issue yourself stock at, or options at 0.1 of a cent when everyone else has to go on the market and buy them at, 30 cents or 25 cents or whatever, Be aligned in the price you're paying for the shares, the outcomes, what your performance rights, what they're set at, the goals, make them goals you're striving for, not something you're just going to pick up regardless.
Something you've already
short term and the long term.
Something you've already achieved.
Yeah, is performance actually, can you tie a real milestone that would generate value to your milestone for your performance rights to vest, as opposed to like staying at the company for 12 months? Like that's not performance. That's you know what I mean? Like those sorts of things. Yeah, and it's hard. I empathise with the challenge, because I understand like promotion is part of the unfortunate reality of the capital markets, that explorers are they have to get acquainted with. And most of these explorers are run by geologists, and capital markets aren't their domain. They're trying to learn this stuff. So it's a hard thing to do. Just think like to the best you can, avoid things where there's poor alignment or no alignment, and do as much as you can to maximize the probability of exploration success.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. Thank you.
We just want people to we want punters to make money. And if the companies are wasting money flying business class to every conference, that money's not going into the ground, and the retail shareholder has got less chance of making money. They're the ones paying for it in both the money that the capital raisings and the depreciation in the share price. So, geez, we're getting on our high horse a bit, Jess.
I just wanted tips, okay? You're very ready. You're ready for the savages.
Oh yeah. We're pumping
You're
ourselves up so we can cop it.
What are some market trends that you think we'll be seeing over the next few years?
Oh, geez, we've got a few, don't we? We look at, I guess the way we look at it, we'll never say this is definitely going up or this is definitely going down. Like we might have high conviction individually or as a group on thematics, but it's like more like, right, we have got our eye on this and this is exciting and there's a lot of things at play and we're probably each got different ones.
Yeah, I can start off with a theme, and I actually think it relates to exploration. I think a theme will be higher rates of exploration success, and I think that might be led by AI, and I get there will be a lot of people who have a different view to me on that, but I think if that happens, if you have higher rates of exploration success, I think the market will collectively get more clever in being able to evaluate exploration companies, because that's not many people are very skilled at evaluating that. So I just think our ability to have better exploration success, evaluate it, and allocate capital in a way that generates adequate returns will probably, hopefully, give a bit of a renaissance to exploration funding, but in a way that delivers value as opposed to erodes value.
I think a tailwind to what you've said there, Trav, is something we've speak about every week, is that we are pretty bullish on metals prices in the medium term, and a lot of that comes from the fact that there just hasn't been much money spent on big mining projects for a long time now. And we're not breaking this news or anything; it's something spoken about in the mining industry pretty regularly. And over the medium term, I think that is sort of gonna sort of be realized, and that's going to play out across a whole host of metals, which will then go on and incentivize more exploration and more assets to sort of come online.
I reckon my one is just overall the effect of energy in the next probably, it could be 6-7 years. And that is hinging on so many things. It's hinging on the uptake of nuclear energy around the world, whether the world can supply all that, and whether all the reactors will get built based on how much uranium can be supplied. And from that's going to have then effect on lithium, because if there's nuclear energy, there's going to be less need for lithium battery storage because you've got cheap baseload power. Then that lithium also is going to be affected by the uptake of plug-in hybrids to know if there's going to be as much lithium needed in batteries for cars. That is just, I don't even know what the trend is going to be, but that's where all the action is. Pretty much the energy is going to drive commodities for the foreseeable future. It's going to be very interesting.
Oh, there you go. Well, I did get some other questions sent through to me. So I'm going to start with you, Travis. All potash sulfate mines in WA have failed badly. What's going to make one work in the next 5 years?
Can I guess who this came from?
No.
Did this come from Mark?
It may have.
He may have sent me a question to ask you, so I'll reserve that to the end, Jess.
Oh, no. Is it the periodic table?
Yeah, it is. He's like, ask Jess to name the first 20 elements in the periodic table.
Oh, nerd.
I can't. I know. Back to you.
So I reckon, what's going to make a potash project work in Australia? Can I be pretty controversial? I don't think they can. I seriously think all of these like sulfate of potash projects that came to market in Western Australia. The way that they were modelled was using this thing called a steady state pond model. And that steady state pond model tries to simplify a very dynamic and complex system and distill it down into what it would be like in steady state. The huge problem is you might get steady state in the Atacama where there's no fucking rainfall, no leakage. You literally can have a steady state environmental condition. Those such conditions do not exist in Western Australia. We just have way too many rainfall events all the time. And, with a rainfall event, you get dilution. It throws out the chemistry of these potash pond systems. Ultimately, the horrible reality of a lot of those systems is you have a horrible feedback loop in terms of the time it takes to respond to any change in that system. It can be as much as 3 years before you get proper feedback of a change to your pond in terms of any output that then you can then actually have to change, and that's like to do with like the brine that builds up at the floor and all that sort of stuff. It's crazy. So I just think like you can't finance that. You can't iterate and get a steady state outcome unless it's bloody undercover it's like, what do you, like, it's just, I'm just super bearish potash in Western Australia, bullish it in Atacama. I'm bullish MOP if you want to mine that in Ukraine and like Uralkali. Like I'm happy for BHP to build Jansen and get their 11% IRR from doing that. Nutrien and Mosaic have they're pretty good businesses. They're honestly like pretty good businesses, but they're mining potash. They're not doing these like brine things in conditions where there's heaps of rainfall.
You need to start build like a big massive. If you can build a big massive tarp to go over the top of it, Trav, and cover it, geez, you'd make millions.
Yeah.
That's so good. JD Minres, tier 2 lithium producer.
Trav will give you some views on them.
I mean, you can't really just look at MinRes like that because they're not a pure play lithium company. So it's a sort of a bit myopic just to look at the lithium part of the business because it all sort of plays a role. And, I don't think by and large a lot of the capital was allocated well that they spent over the last year, the $1 billion odd that they spent across the lithium sector. They've picked up Bald Hill, which is one of the higher cost, there's a reason it suffered its fate in 2019, but they've picked that up now. And I think across the board, they will still make money because they're getting the assets. They got them at the right time. They made a lot of money, selling stakes in them in the late 2010s, and they've got them up to scale already. And it's a sort of, mining's an economies of scale business when you get to those sorts of levels. And I think they're going to actually make a fair bit of money over the longer term. They'll ride the waves, but they've got a balancing act to play with Onslow coming online. That needs to go smooth. They're trying a few novel things there. And then they've got the base rock that their mining services business is. And I think the gas part of their business will actually do well over the medium to long term as well. So overall, it's led by someone who's not afraid of risk, not afraid of leverage. And you can see that right now in the balance sheet and just tuning into the most recent quarterly calls and whatnot. But I don't think the lithium business is terrible by any means. I'm a bit sort of suspect about how they report some of the numbers and whatnot, but overall, I think they're in not such a bad position. And given the scale of the lithium business, the people they've partnered with and whatnot, the way in which they've avoided losing tons of money by going downstream, like a lot of the other participants in WA did, could be a lot worse.
Yeah. Next one is this for anyone. What keeps you awake at the moment? What's been some of your biggest challenges so far?
money at the start. That was bloody stressful when you go all in on something, and especially at the start when the boys are like, right, we're not taking money off companies. And I'm like, what have I just done? How am I going to make money if I can't take money off companies? Where's it bloody going to come from? And I was like, what are these young blokes on about? But Jesus Christ, they were right. Hence why, yeah. So no, we've got a pretty freaking awesome day job. I think like nothing much work related keeps us up at night. The only thing that keeps us up is like when you get that. Like last night, we had this big in-depth yarn with this guy in New York. That's one of the OG sort of uranium investors. And I got home at 11 at night and I was that wired from it because it was that intense and that high level. I had to have some midnight beers to sort of calm myself down to actually get to sleep. So it's things that keep us awake are more excitement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd echo that. We've got a heap to be excited about, and on the business front, we can be pretty grateful for where we're at 1 year in. It's been a pretty awesome response from the people that actually tune in and listen to us. So, obviously want to keep making it better and better every day, but sleeping pretty well.
That's so good. I love that. Trav, why on earth did you buy St. Barbara shares in the first place?
I love that question because you're 100% right. There is no reason to ever buy St. Barbara shares. But this all circles back to the battle for Leonora, which was the first. It was a really interesting story. You've got three companies. There were at least three big characters around them, and two of them were fighting over St. Barbara, which had shit assets and was horribly underperforming, of course. And as part of the whole battle, it was a hostile battle for a project. Like that stuff doesn't happen in M&A. Like it doesn't happen ever. Like let alone mining. Like a hostile battle for a project. Sometimes you have a hostile battle for a company, but a project, it was just everything about it was interesting, and especially the
project
characters.
Shit too.
Yeah, and as we just got so embedded into that journey and we're following it and we're commentating on it and we're getting like feedback on it, there's a story that really grabbed us. At one point, Silver Lake, who were trying to get in the way of Raoul's plans to gobble up Gwalia, Silver Lake pop up and they've got this sort of this response of why you as a St. Barbara shareholder should vote down the Gwalia transaction. And they even put a hotline to call. It was like a hotline to call. Sorry, this came from St. Barbara. I'm getting my bloody wires crossed. Oh, anyway, St. Barbara put on their announcement a hotline to call, which would ultimately allow you to talk to this person and they would guide you through the things that you needed to know as a St. Barbara shareholder to make the right decision. And we just thought, this is hilarious. I don't want to call this hotline on the back of not actually being a St. Barbara shareholder. I want to call them as a St. Barbara shareholder. So and this is when I learned about the minimum amount of shares you're allowed to buy. You have to buy $500 worth of stock to become a shareholder of anything. You can't buy less. So I forked up $500 of my own money and became a St. Barbara shareholder just to call the hotline. And we tried to get permission to play that conversation on the potty, but we couldn't. So Maddie just did a short and was like, Travis, how does it feel to be a St. Barbara shareholder?
It was that the one, and I think we called it the first time, or maybe that was the Silver Lake one. We actually called it and we were recording it, but it kept going to, your call could not be connected.
That's right.
And we played it and they're going off their head. They're like, oh, you just embarrassed us. I'm like, oh, no, it doesn't work on Telstra. It only works on Optus. And it was friggin' hilarious.
Trav, the question I have for you is why it took you so long to sell the shares after the deal wrapped up.
There's a little bit of sentimental value, mate. I think there's some human behavioural biases like the endowment effect. Yeah, really.
You should print out your share certificate and we should put it on the wall behind you.
I've sold them now.
That's so good.
I've actually run a fair bit in the last few weeks, so I should have held on to it.
Bullish St. Barbara.
Talk, mate, talk.
JD, should all WA and Canadian nickel narrow high-grade sulfide operations admit defeat or at least stop whinging?
I do feel for a lot of them, like it's super, super tough. And especially if you've been an explorer or whatever in the space for a long time, it makes sense to pick up tenements, in, looking for other sort of commodities. It's been pretty tough for those who actually had more developed assets or an actual mine. You're in a real world of hurt, as we've sort of seen with companies from Wailu's assets all the way up to BHB. So they've got some serious, dollar questions to answer in the immediate future if they haven't yet. But I mean, if you're an explorer, I think it's probably worthwhile picking up other. It really depends where you are, what the sort of stage of your project is and whatnot. I mean, the inevitable way of the market is you're going to get rewarded for talking about things like copper and uranium and gold. And whilst we haven't been so fond of this massive turn of companies all of a sudden loving uranium or whatever it might be, there is some merit to looking at a portfolio of other assets and just sort of having that if you're an exploration sort of company.
Yeah. So on that, could WA Nickel learn from Indonesia and adapt the Chinese HPAL for laterite projects? And if so, what projects?
I mean, it sort of comes back to the economies of scale again, and that's what they've really got in Indonesia. They've got power plants next to these industrial parks that are just pumping out nickel. I mean, the answer sort of split because we've got obviously a lot of sulfide projects in WA as well, but there are HPAL assets. Murrin and Glencore have come out and said how much they're hurting as well. So just using that processing method doesn't ensure you've got victory. You need to have a project of real scale with all the other bits, the infrastructure, the power, the roads, everything. It's not as simple as just saying, hey, let's use that processing technique as well. I think we've already done that a while ago.
And their deposits are twice the grade of any of the laterite we've got over here. And there's just like endless bloody supply of them, all close to surface. When you throw in those power dynamics like JD talked about, and the fact that capital sunk already, it'd be pretty damn challenging. There's another line of questioning, which is should we have is there a case to build to have some ex-China supply, et cetera, but the economics on their own merit, it's a hard case to build, I think.
Yeah. And price of labour in Australia, that blows everything out for us. Price of the capex to build it, and that ex-China supply that's going to cost more. Everyone needs to ask themselves, would they pay extra for an EV just because it's mined in the West under good ESG? Because that's where the extra cost goes down to, is the consumer. So, and I wouldn't be surprised if most people wouldn't pay it.
Yeah. This is for anyone. There's so many high-grade intersections being released or outstanding results. Can we have your thoughts on how this rubbish low-grade ramping drivel can be stamped out?
Oh, God. Blend all the exploration companies into one because that's the reason there's so many small caps out there and they need news flow. So whether it's bloody high grade, low grade, they need news flow. So the market filters through it pretty quickly, and then it goes down and they bloody raise more capital.
Yeah.
But people tip into the raises. They're not forcing them to do it. They put the money in, so it is their their choice.
I think
they keep feeding the fire.
To Maddie's point, it's all incentives, right? Why do people do this? It's because they actually have an incentive to do it. They ramp it. They do a capital raise off the back of it, or whatever. Like there's some event that is done on the back of this. These short-term games. And I think why do they get rewarded in the market in the short term for doing it? Well, I think we don't necessarily do a great job as an industry of being able to equip generalist market participants to be able to decipher crap from not crap. And I think those tools and those that capability and the services that help people do that are getting better and better. And I think we'll ultimately get more efficiency in the market in order to ensure that shit doesn't get rewarded. And then I think when that happens, you'll see less of these short-term games that ultimately just cost retail money.
Well, the one that pisses me off, Trav, is it's high grade, but it's high grade that comes out of areas that have been drilled 15 to 20 years ago. Now there's a new IPO that comes out that re-drills that ground, and North Queensland Copper has had cases like this, got sucked into one of them, and they re-release the high grade, but it's already been there, and they're just trying to get an uplift based on high grades in a thematic that might be in flavour.
Yeah.
So that pisses me off more than low grade. So.
Love it. What do you guys think of the WAF press release today?
That was high grade. What was it?
Geez, a better bloody look.
I think it was like 23. Well, was it 55 meters at 23 grams? Or
Yeah, even better than that. It was infill drilling from the M1 South project within, or deposit load within their Sembrado mine. So yeah, infill drilling, but they have, they're a company that's executed super, super well. The market is sort of starting to realize that. They're also unhedged, so they are just reaping the rewards of the running gold price. And there's this sort of overhang over the stock of the development of Kiaka, their nearby development project that's meant to come online by third quarter calendar year 2025. So if they do that smoothly, they're going to be, producing over 400,000 ounces of gold at a pretty competitive all-in sustaining cost. Granted, they are in West Africa, as the name sort of suggests, but they, along with the likes of like Perseus, they trade at pretty compelling multiples if you can stomach the risk.
Yeah, and that is just, you take your hat off to WAFF. Like they're discounted because they're a West African producer, but they have delivered on, like, in terms of capital, time of delivery for their projects, the ounces they've produced, like, it's, God, you take your hat off. How many coups? They're going through like 7 or 8 coups or something in Burkina Faso. And, they just keep on delivering. So brilliant business. But if you move those ore bodies to Australia and they're trading here, they'd be triple the value. But they're not. So
they would have been mined decades ago as well.
Exactly.
It isn't. And it's probably interesting when you grade is a function of. I don't know what the corruption's like over there, but like grade is sometimes a function of difficulty. So some of the best geology and the best grades in the world are in the Congo, and that's because there's such valuable minerals there. That's when you've got heightened levels of corruption. So, yeah, should put that on a graph or something.
Were there any other questions from anybody? You're welcome to jump off mute and have a chat with them direct as well. You're sick of listening to my voice at this stage. See what comes through.
They might be sick of us by now, Joyce.
I did actually see another one. Why is there not more diversity? I don't know if it's related to episodes or the investor circle or
gender diversity.
Is it? Do you think it's a question about the industry or a question about our content?
I'm not sure.
Happy to take it either way. Yeah.
Maybe we'll explore both then. Yeah.
I think it's a challenge. It's one of those challenges without a good answer. Like, I think, we've got one of the an interesting lens of being able to see a lot of the demographic data of our audience. And it's pretty startling when you look at it, like from a gender split perspective. And granted, we're for the most of the time, like 3 guys interviewing guys. So there's like that kind of tendency for that to be appealing to other guys. And heck, some of our biggest fans are women as well, but I'll be completely transparent. It's like 5 to 6% of our total audience is females. And in some ways, I think that's like one of those revealed preferences that comes through not in like data because you surveyed people, but it's a revealed preference because it's actually how many people tuned in to your YouTube analytics or your Spotify analytics. I just don't know if there's a bloody good answer. And it's heck, to the extent it's an industry with heaps of great women. it's just unfortunate that a lot of women don't choose to participate for a myriad of reasons, which we could, have been kind of talked to death as well.
It's such a, like, I reckon finance, like, I've come from the mining industry, but going into the finance industry, I reckon finance is even more male dominated than mining. There's not many, like we had Karina on from Acorn, so that was, but in terms of like females in the fund manager area, like there is not many. I can't think of many at all. Well, like and analysts as well. Like the one really reputable one you hear a lot from is Kate McCutcheon at Citi, and we're actually interviewing her when we go to Sydney next. And not because she's a woman or anything, it's just because she's a bloody good analyst. And yeah, we target the people that are just very interesting to us. And it's as simple as that. It's just unfortunate that it's just such a male-dominated industry, and we can't service the diversity.
Yeah, I'd completely echo what the guys have said there as well. And our priority is always just to interview or follow our interests and find the most high quality people that we can speak to, and we don't, sort of try and we look anywhere for that. But I mean, the one step which we hope we can sort of bridge is making what we're talking about more sort of welcoming and more easing and less daunting. And that's, for anyone, because the mining industry needs more people to come into it, regardless. Like the numbers of people studying mining engineering and geology are pretty startlingly low. So whoever the people are, we hope we can sort of chip away at the sort of whatever the wall is, or the whether it's just because people think it's complicated or it's a dying industry or whatever, and just make it more understanding and put a sort of face to it that people find they can relate to and get in touch with and speak with.
Yeah.
There actually is in the finance world. There's probably a lot more females in investor relations, but that is the one area we don't talk to anyone because that's where the stock promotion side of things is. So yeah,
and we've got the best female investment banker as part of the team, Ali G.
Yeah,
sure do.
Going back to the WAF chat earlier, can you see Perseus and WAF merging or other similar combos?
I think at the right price, it could be on the table. I think the like you haven't seen that deal done to date, and it's probably because the two companies, their multiples sort of like are very like highly correlated, and so at any point in time, one of them thinks, oh, I'm not getting enough of the pie. The other one thinks, no, I'm not getting enough of the pie. You kind of need like a catalyst to, like, Perseus are pretty disciplined with M&A, and for them to do that deal, they would want WAF to be pretty beaten up and amenable to doing that deal in a state where they're pretty beaten up. The trouble is, if WAF's beaten up, they're not going to want to do that deal because they think they're not going to get adequately enough of the pro forma in that deal. So it's just one of those tricky ones where neither party are kind of willing to do that deal until the relative contributions work out. And so who knows? Like we'll see how it unfolds. I'd be an advocate of the two coming together in a nil premium kind of merger and just cop it. But those things rarely ever happen.
Yeah, I think you look at, say, Westgold Karora, for instance, in that merger that's happening. On the back of that, Westgold are going to be a 400,000 ounce producer. They'll probably likely get a bit of a re-rate, more index buying, and just get a bit bigger. Whereas I think, do you think if WAF and Perseus merged, there's still going to be an African producer, and that's probably fine. But they wouldn't get a re-rate on the back of it just because they're bigger, because they get the African discount.
No, well, to the extent
you've diversified your
risk,
specific jurisdictional risk to an extent. You've got the economies of scale. So I mean, yeah, to what Trav said, the problem is when one of them's discounted, it's most likely a risk-off environment for West African stocks, and the other one's discounted as well. So you don't often find a time where one's really marked down versus the other.
Yeah, that's cool. Were there any other questions from anybody?
Geez, you'll be punting hard on the ComSec after this chat, Jess.
I got another question for you, Jess.
Oh gosh, what?
2 seconds. I'm just gonna have to locate it. It was something about singing a song. Just give me a moment.
Oh my gosh.
Does it ring a bell? So
It's the periodic table again, isn't it?
do you have to sing it in a song?
Yeah, apparently it's a song.
Is
I
it?
don't even. Yeah.
Are you the writer of this song?
No, I got put on the spot the other day with a certain someone, and they were asking if I knew the periodic table, even the top 10. And I was like, no. And then before I knew it, everyone was singing a song. So it was like hydrogen,
I remember that
helium,
from that high
something.
school chemistry.
Yeah.
You forgot lithium, number 3. Can't forget lithium. The lithium balls will
Hydrogen,
never forgive you.
helium, lithium, neon, argon.
No,
Is that right?
Hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium.
Beryllium. Oh yeah, Trav, you would know it.
No, mate, I didn't even
Come
do
on, sing
chemistry.
the song.
I didn't even do. I did economics instead of chemistry in high school. So stuck with physics, but dropped chem. Yeah.
Jeez, we've let you down there, mate.
Back to West Africa. What do you think of other juniors over there? Someone he likes, Tim Strong's Asara.
Not familiar with that one.
Not familiar.
I think there's a lot of value there if you're comfortable with the risk. It's just being comfortable with the risk is it's not a straightforward question because there's so much variability, and every month that we've done the pod, there's some freaking asset that you thought was safe is no longer safe, and companies in limbo, and it's forever in a trading halt.
Yeah, and like government percentages of changing, like we've seen just since we've been on Tanzania, that all changed, and that hence the battle for Nyanzaga took place because there was just Lithium was just absolutely looking the goods, and no, that's
Mali.
Which one?
Yeah, Leo was Mali.
What's
Battle
the
for Nyanzaga was Tanzania.
Tanzania, yeah. So
and then Sierra Leone, what are they doing at the moment?
the battle for Sierra Rutile.
Yeah,
that was
Fumble in the jungle.
Yeah, so
Yeah, you can see the whole reason Perseus as well got a bit more active on the M&A front is because Sudan had a sort of unfortunate civil war kind of breakout as well, which is where they had their growth project. So that's why they became interested in OreCorp.
Yeah.
I think small caps in Africa, it seems like backing. It's one of those. It sounds like rare earths a bit, like backing the incumbents that have got the track record there and have the tenure. Like look at what happens in the DRC. But Robert Friedland seems to be going well with Ivanhoe, and WAFF and Perseus are making great cash there. So, Tieto was on a bit of a turnaround after building their project. So
Tieto is interesting, right? Because they're at a moment of undergoing a takeover from Chinese group. I would actually, if I were to invest in the West African junior space, I'd look for pretty decent undeveloped projects in countries where there is a clear pathway and history of the Chinese buying them, because I'd be perfectly comfortable as a shareholder to accept that as my out, but I don't want to own it in a jurisdiction where there's an uncertain bloody way for this. Are they going to have to build it? There's no history of takeovers here. I just want to take over.
Just want cash.
The coups they're a very complicated issue in Africa, on that topic as well. They're not by default a bad thing. First of all, the mining assets that are operating tend to stay operating regardless of the regime. That's why you see in companies like Predictive, when a coup happened in country there in Guinea, the stock barely moved, because that's obviously not even a producer, but getting that thing online is in the interest of whoever's in government. And, it can be that a, less favorable government to the people is being removed and there's a new one coming in. I mean, it's complicated and you can't sort of paint them all with the same broad brush.
I think the people that get the alpha investing in in African stocks are people that have either worked over there or lived somewhere or over there, but have like a really good understanding of it, because it's like, from my perspective, I've never been to Africa and I've never been really heavily invested in anything Africa. So I probably think more negatively, but without, just purely because I don't fully understand the area and how the areas are different. So in my case, it's like, right, I'm not comfortable tipping me money in because I don't understand it, but there's probably a lot of people that have a really, really good understanding of Africa and can invest pretty wisely. So not me. Got enough other shit to learn at the moment. I'll chuck it on the list.
Add it to the list. Yeah. What are like next steps for you guys? Are you going to keep expanding into other markets and geographies further? And yeah, what are you thinking?
Oh, yeah, it's a constant thing we talk about all the time. We're trying to keep a pretty basic rule of, right, if we're going to expand, it needs to make money and not require much work. So if we're trying to keep things pretty simple, I guess if we, like, hypothetically, if we said, right, tomorrow we want to expand into North America, but if we were doing that ourselves, it's like, in terms of the network and the understanding and the history of everything, like we just couldn't provide the same insight we do on Australian resources in North America. Like, we don't have the network, the contacts, and it helps because I worked in WA mines for 13 years. So in and around that, I learnt a lot of stuff about the history and the connections and everything. Like, if you translate that into North America, I'll be completely bloody useless. So, and good advice we got given by people that have gone down the media landscape that sort of look at us and appreciate the simplicity. They're like, oh, it's kind of wish we stayed in our lane early on. People think they have to grow and expand, but it's like, well, we're pretty comfortable in this lane. Why not just make this lane the best we friggin' can and see what happens beyond that? So
this is our niche, right? Like, we've all worked in the industry, and this is like the industry that we actually love it. You know, as critical as we are often and cynical as we are, we do love it. And I don't think we're attracted to talking about other industries outside of, resources. I don't think we'd be the best at it either. And I think, like, if we can keep our business with that simplicity, like Matty talks about, like, we don't want a team of like 15 people, pumping out articles or anything like that. I think if we
imagine having to pay annual leave and sick leave, God, that'd give you the shit. And super.
Yeah.
Oh,
there's a lot of freedom and flexibility that comes with this job because it's simple. And if we can turn that into a high margin sort of machine doing what we're doing, then we're pretty happy with that.
Oh, what do you reckon we should do, Jess? Give us some bloody advice from the outside.
We chat about this a lot, don't we, Matt?
Well,
I've definitely stayed in my lane too, not diversifying too much. Just geology, that's where it's at. 4 years going, so.
And look at what you've done. You've created. This is your niche, the high level geology. I hopefully apologise if we've tarnished your brand and discredited you with this episode, but everything is deletable if it ends up going bad for you.
Yeah, if you don't make it to the YouTube, no, it's been good.
But I think like, just to sort of close that bit out, is if you're going to do anything, like, you've got to find a niche and really separate yourself from the field, and we did that in terms of, right, we are going to provide content that is purely independent and not influenced by any companies, any stockbrokers, any investor relations, and it is just, this is as pure as it gets, and it isn't anywhere else in the market really, in the mining finance side, because everything else is paid for. So it's like, and I don't think we're going to get much competition because no one's stupid enough to try and do this without companies paying them. So like we were, so we're probably glad we got in first because it was bloody stressful at the start, but it's definitely paid off.
That's really cool. Do you guys have ambitions to start your own junior exploration company someday?
I actually mentioned this to Trav the other day. Probably definitely not a junior exploration company because I would not. I'd just make a fool of myself, and I get too excited when I go to conferences in the social side. So, I actually said after this, once we're getting into metallurgy and like the really in the weeds about the finance and with the mining background, I'm like, shit, it makes you want to actually go and build a project or build a mine because you see what we see is like the best managing directors and the ones that aren't as good, and like in terms of shareholder alignment and the way you just get shit done, it's like, geez, I wouldn't mind having a crack at this, but no way, it's friggin' I'm too bloody lazy.
I always think of what this Fundy told us. He'll remain nameless, but he was commenting on Wailu taking over Mincor and having to operate the mine, and he said, I think he said something like, I've invested in mining companies professionally for 2 decades now, but I'm not stupid enough to think I can run the bloody thing. So it stays front and center in my mind.
Yeah.
I do think one cool thing I'd love to see more of, and I'm sure people smarter than me have thought about this before. I'd love to see like more exploration companies, like in a sustainable model to be an exploration company private, have those activities done privately. Then there's no need to promote, mate. But like imagine like that kind of, a shitload of private exploration companies, and they've got funding from private capital, and that they still need to report results and everything to that capital in order for it to keep coming through. But if then there's no need to go to conferences, no need to appeal to retail. It's just we don't quite have the capital markets, I think, to do that very well, unless it's a pre-IPO, and then everyone participates, not because it's good exploration ground, because they think they're getting in at an earlier price than the dumb money which comes later, which is just a silly model in and of itself.
Yeah, and I think
we could switch to that more private.
Well,
I don't know how easy it is.
You think of how, like, Jess, if you were running a business yourself and it was an exploration company and like it was all your money in it, it was private, and you've got say you got a group of mates and you all own a quarter each or something, you wouldn't get it over the line to pay yourself $400,000, would you, a year? But because this is public money and they get to raise money and they've got easy access to capital and everything, like they pay themselves shitloads of money even without a chance of getting a decent resource, or they've got a chance, but they don't have it. So if you apply that to a private business, how different a private business will get run compared to how the public ones get run. I think it'd be very interesting to see.
From an investment perspective as well, investors they're always going to demand a better return for an illiquid asset. So if they can't trade in and out, in the short to medium term, and if they have to hold on to that is going to demand a higher return. So we'd see what that sort of means on aggregate. It's sort of hard to say, but that's just the way capital markets work.
So you got any tenements, Jess, that we can bloody yarn about later? We might be able to get the wheels in motion.
No, you had me thinking before when you start talking to all these interesting people that it makes you be like, oh, that would be so cool. I've had a couple of laughs with some people in the past of like all this geology content that I've absorbed. I'm like, oh, I'd love to make my own discovery now, but no, I don't think I could.
But you could
really want
use
to go
your
out there in the field and really get out there exploring. It would be super fun.
But you could just use GeoHug to promote your own exploration company free. What a bargain.
That would be cool. Pink diamonds, that's what I'd want.
Well, hey, there's a gap in the market for it. Go find the next Argyle. Mate, there might be some left up there. It's absolute bloody pus, that ground, so good luck getting in there.
They'll probably give you the thing for free. Just take it off them. It's only got an $850 million liability.
Oh, gosh.
Do you think, like, would that be your exploration pitch, like, Pink Diamond Company because they look cool.
Because they look cool. Yeah. That would be a good, because they're super cool.
Oh, mate, I'm in. I'll be
I'm in.
throwing the money.
She knows her stuff. Gary, do you have a question?
Yeah, I've got some comments. Can you guys hear me loud and clear?
G'day, Gary. How you going, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. I'm actually the other side of the rabbit-proof fence. I'm ringing from Melbourne, and I've been based up in the Northern Territory for a long time. We just don't seem to get much feed about mines, money of mine. So, like, it was just the LinkedIn ad with the special about what's wrong with exploration funding, which was a good watch. I enjoyed seeing that. Watching you there at Black Tom's in the studio, smashing a few beers while you're at it as well. The promotion is one thing. Like, you don't need to think about OS. I think just better promotion here in Oz amongst the junior sector.
It's good to hear that there's still room for us to grow. Sometimes we think like are there many other people in the industry to stumble across our content or anything like that? Because I do think in WA it's different to being over east where there is a bit of a gap to bridge. But it's reassuring to us to know that there's plenty more people who haven't come across the content that we put out there yet. But mate, you can find us on YouTube. Money of Mine. Just look us up. We put up a show 4 days a week. The base one is like a daily show talking about the news of the day of all of the mining companies, and then from time to time we'll do those deep dive interviews like we did with Ahmad on the exploration funding model.
Yeah, that, maybe a few free stubby holders or something like that.
Oh, mate, we've got shitload, mate.
I'm trying to get a shirt too, Gary, don't worry.
Hey, Gary, flick us your bloody address, mate, and your shirt size, and we'll send you a merch pack, mate, because we've got shitloads of shirts and we put no effort into selling them. So we'll send you over a pack, mate. Well, I'm trying to get rid of them.
Yeah. Just one thing. I'm curious as to, because I worked the mines during the 90s over west for way too long, and I came back after I'd been away for a decade or more. I hadn't been to Perth for a very long time, and I got asked to come and meet somebody at this place, Black Tom's, which when I got there, I thought, what the hell is this about?
It's shut down now, Black Tom's.
Yeah. It's a uniquely Western Australian kind of mining institution. I think it's a bit of an anomaly.
Yeah,
I've never been.
I think there was a lot of deals and wheeling and dealing got done at Black Tom's in the West Perth mining scene, I've been told. So they reckon it was pretty sad when it actually shut down, because I think a lot of it was the stock standard watering hole for a lot of the MDs and CEOs around this district.
Yeah. Never been though, Gary. So unfortunately, buddy. Yeah.
Only once. Just a couple of comments with the private equity path. I've been down that, and it's fraught with issues as well.
Yeah.
It seems it's sort of quite idealistic to look at it as, no shareholders, no market to respond to, whatever. But the pragmatic realities with project valuation,
tough.
We're trying to get a project up in terms of capital so we can drop holes. And, that it's an incredibly complex issue with regards to that project valuation, the EV of the project.
Totally.
It's a complexity to it. I'm sitting just looking at the disconnect in terms of the volume of commodities going to be required over the next, 30 years with regards to the transition. And it's just beyond me how our sector is going to actually meet that, on so many fronts, and it's not just the ESG issue, which is sort of, creating problems, but just the sheer availability of metal in the Earth's surface, and how that can be sourced, processed, and presented in a way that the industry in the world can actually create these new technologies. It's actually quite beyond me.
I think the metal and the chemicals, like you call lithium a chemical, but I think it's there. It's just going to be pricing that determines it. Like there's a shit ton of uranium everywhere. It's going to be needed, and shitload of tailings everywhere that can be retreated. It'll be the price that determines if you're going to get it out. We've just seen in this recent lithium boom how much lithium is everywhere, just in terms of spodumene, let alone all the sedimentary and brines and geothermal in Europe. Like there's an abundance of it. It's going to be price that determines how much of it comes out of the ground. And on that transition, I don't even know if we know exactly what that transition's going to be yet. It's as I mentioned at the start, it's going to so many different permutations of what this transition is going to look like in the next decade.
That's a good point, because it's like the supply will always respond to the price. I think what you articulated, Gary, is exactly why we're bullish commodities long term. There is no doubt. I think the response to price doesn't always happen in the way that it's painted out to look like it will happen by the market experts and the people that put together all the slides that say we need X number of new mines by X date. I think the reality of the way that supply responds to higher prices is actually just brownfields expansions at giant operations, an expansion at Oyu Tolgoi or at Escondida, and those sorts of things can happen in a way that materially move the dial in terms of global output, more so than bringing on X number of new copper mines per year and those sorts of things. So yeah, I'm always pretty critical of those forecasts that go out to like 2050 and project backwards. But I think the thesis is I'm on the same page as you as for.
It's a colleague of mine was at COP28 and he just was telling me, very excitedly and saying that it's there, the resources are there. And I went, yeah, well, you try and get them out of the ground, buddy.
And it's one thing getting them out of the ground, and the other thing is processing them. Getting out of the ground is probably the easiest part. We've just seen between the rare earths and some of the lithium deposits and everything, it's trying to get them separated is going to be the big function of what's going to drive it all.
Do you think the timeline is something that's perhaps unrealistic?
In terms of like a 2030 EV?
Yeah.
Things changed in and even our view since we've started, I don't think we talked about plug-in hybrids at all last year. Everyone was just like, nah, we're going to, originally it was like, right, nickel's going to be the biggest thing because everyone wants long-range EV batteries. Then that quickly changed to LFP being the dominant chemistry because that was where the biggest uptake was. And then now it's like, now there's these plug-in hybrids that might fill the void between people that are sitting on the fence about whether to go EV or bloody petrol or diesel. So things just happened just even in the last year to think of what's the world going to look like in terms of EVs in 6 years' time. Who bloody knows? These plug-in hybrids might take off and we're all going to adopt them very quickly. But it's not a full transition to a full EV. I think the timing is purely a function of infrastructure around every country to support a full EV adoption, because sure as hell I don't think we've got it in Australia at the moment if everyone wanted an EV, because you just wouldn't be able to bloody charge them outside of everyone wouldn't be able to charge them outside of your house. So it's whether that infrastructure comes online quick enough is the determining factor, I think.
Yeah, and if you're talking a sort of step before that, if the question's more broad based about addressing, climate change, then where grid electricity is sourced from is obviously integral, and then you get to the topics of nuclear, which we've interviewed far smarter people than us on the show in the past. So you can go and hear what they've got to say about it, about whether that's the ultimate source of, baseload fuel generation, and what the renewable space can sort of meet, and how gas sort of plays its role, and how coal and these things change in the coming decades. But it's a pretty huge question that hopefully the guests we have on the show can answer in a much more articulate way than we can.
I think we established this year that going full renewable for baseload power across Australia is probably not the most practical thing, and if it does happen, it's going to cost a shitload of money in new transmission corridors that really don't plug and play with the existing ones that are coming out of coal-fired power stations. So, yeah, but I don't think nuclear is such a big, long thing to try and put into place in terms of just getting the reactors and then the conversion and enrichment capacity to feed those reactors. Like getting the yellow cake out of the ground is just one small problem. It's what goes beyond that. So yeah, God, mate, I do not bloody know, because things change so quick.
We hit a junction with nuclear probably 30 years ago, and chose one path. And I think you have to actually go back that far, because if there'd been decisions made at that point, we wouldn't be with a situation where it was such a complex issue now.
What's the vibe like in Victoria?
Rolling blackouts, mate.
Yeah, like around nuclear and renewables and everything. What's sort of the general consensus?
Generally here, I mean, I'm in the part of Melbourne I'm living in. It's like a choke reaction. It's just it just conjures images of chaos and blocks of ice the size of pig's woods falling from the sky, and there's very, very much that belief that renewables will get it through. But the crazy thing here is the reality with LPG. With Bass Strait running short, and with no development of new gas on shore here in Vic, it's a complete ban. They're now looking at actually shipping LPG in from overseas, which is, wow, in my view, it's just completely bonkers. When the resources are here, but that's the situation we've now got, because there's so much of a pushback against, mining activity within this part of the world.
Yeah. Victoria's definitely got that stigma attached to it of being very hard to get mining online, which is so interesting considering like the history of Ballarat and everything like that. But is that pretty accurate? Like, is it the permitting is a friggin' shit fight in Victoria?
Yeah, the thing with it is, and you have to look at New South Wales, Western New South Wales, and that area now, when you consider that the sort of Cobar, Lachlan Fold Belt and so forth, those areas are just absolutely cranking. But there were multinationals pulling out of that space 20 years ago because it was just so hard to develop new projects.
Yeah.
And Vic at the moment is just this. Yeah, I mean, it's just there's so many issues that are stepping in the way, not just the ESG, but just access. There's mostly, I think all of Victoria is apart from sort of forests and so forth, is freehold land.
Yeah.
Whereas what you're dealing with in many parts of Oz is you're dealing with pastoral land. So, your access in terms of exploration and mining is a very, very different issue. And ironically, for the renewable sort of change here, the big vision, they're just waiving the requirement for a whole lot of, environmental review in terms of getting getting those corridors established for renewable power. So, all the hoops that a mining project, even exploration, would have to jump through in terms of approvals have just been, basically removed from the equation so that they can fast track these, power corridors.
Yeah. Oh,
to the delight of the, the landowners.
Yes, the joys of it.
So I don't have an answer for you.
We've both left with more questions for ourselves than each other, I think. Cheers for that, Gary. Nice to meet you, mate.
Done. Were there any other questions or comments from anybody? Oh, hey, Edward. Oh,
Yeah, I can hear you, mate.
Gotcha.
We can hear you, Ed.
Okay. I've got 3 different options on my video here. on my audio.
Oh, how are you, Cobber?
Right. Lithium. It's been concentrated. Fewer players going overseas. I'm retired. I'm playing with people I don't normally play with in the academic field. One of the big problems with lithium development in Australia is every time the academics try to think of a new way of processing lithium, within 10 seconds they find a patent. Lithium is one of the most patented products in the world. So whatever development you try to do in lithium commercially, you've hit these bottlenecks. In the past, you used to have entrepreneurs who developed from scratch all the way go. This has now basically been split between patent holders, miners, and investors, and they're basically not meeting. So, what's your comment on that?
How much of those patented things actually work?
Academically, they will stop you from processing. That's how much they are worth.
Yeah, I mean, but how much do they, like a lot of, are we talking things like forms of DLE, like processing techniques?
Basically processing application.
Yeah, because, God, we haven't, and that's the thing with lithium, there's that much up in the air with, DLE is a good example. It's just, it has, to my knowledge, just has not even yet been properly proven. But are you saying that is a function of not enough people being able to utilise the technology because there's patent protection on it?
That's right.
Yeah.
And quite often the universities are the first one to be hit by lawsuits if they continue along those lines. They have to pay up.
Yeah.
It's slightly less meaningful to a mining company than to a university when you've got plenty of revenue at stake. It's just a matter of finding the money, and I'm sure the person on the other side of the patent wants to be economic as well. And there's only a handful of projects that are actually viable. So if they want to monetize the patent, then they're going to have to, let someone, pay for its uses. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't be surprised to learn that there are some pretty substantial advancements going on with DLE. I mean, kind of like a guy had a good gig in a London private equity group, and recently quit to do some DLE venture. He's pretty pumped about it, but I do think, like, in terms of where we sit in Australia, like the three of us are pretty bearish on Australia's like human capital capability to do commercial downstream of anything. Like we have phenomenal expertise, the upstream stuff. We have just like terrible expertise after it's concentrated.
Yeah, we do. I am an extinct animal. I'm a metallurgist.
Oh, beautiful, mate!
I've got a new love for it.
Metallurgical friends work overseas. They come home for Christmas once every 4 years.
Yeah,
but still call Australia home.
Oh, wow.
I'm one of the odd ones that still remain here.
Wow.
Do you reckon, even if we did have the expertise in Australia to, let's just use the IGO lithium downstream as a example, probably even the BHP nickel sulfate plant. Like, do you think that even if we did have the expertise to make it work, that the labour cost in Australia would ever make it feasible to run massive amounts of downstream like a China can?
No, the labour doesn't cost. It's basically the skill level and the knowledge level that we've lost.
Yeah.
We've lost the ability to develop that in this country. We're no longer doing theoretical sciences. Our practical sciences are training people to go overseas. If you go into most mine sites, you're lucky to find half, if not 2/3, not from this country when they graduated. There's a high influx of the specialty people. You can get labourers come in and move shovels, but you can't have people coming in and tell you what they have to move. And that's a qualification we don't have or have lost.
I'd assume as a metallurgist, it's a lot more interesting to work in a downstream processing plant than an upstream one. That's where all the exciting stuff happens.
Yeah, well, I'm a secondary metallurgist, so I work in the actual end products, powder metallurgy, casting, and all that end.
Jesus Christ, you're gonna have to write down your life's work, mate. It'll be bloody. Some people would get some good value out of it, I'd reckon.
We should be asking you the questions.
Yeah, mate. Just flick us everything you know.
Half the people wouldn't understand half the things I talk about.
Yeah, we'd be one of them, mate. Don't worry about that.
The amazing thing, I used to belong to a few American organisations, and they still contact me, and we can actually still speak. So it's really pushing the cobwebs to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm also amazed in the geology. I'm a rock collector now, so I collect minerals. And I'm in close contact with about 9 companies out of Cobar and that. And we go out there, and what I'm having great pleasure in seeing all these halo mines. You had the old mines with high grades. Most of the mines now going for the lower grades, and basically you'll see in the next 50 years you'll have massive super pits going for quantities 0.1 gram, 2 grams, very, very low concentrations, and that's where the basic trend will be in the future. We've got all the geo surveys doing the surveys down to 2 kilometres. That's going to open up quite a bit. For the past 2 centuries, we've been basically doing chicken runs across the surface. We're now going in depth, so there is future, and I'm a great optimist. So,
yeah. Well, the unfortunate thing we've got in Australia is the stress regime due to the I think it's the tectonic squeezing that we just our principal stress is so much higher at depth than it is compared to other countries. So you see the trouble that your CSA and your Gwalias and that have getting down to 1,800 metres, whereas you look at South Africa are down to 3 to 4 kilometres, but their stress coming that way. So it's I think I know there's
minerals have been missed between those 2 points.
Yeah,
that we are finding value.
Yeah.
What do you like in the Cobar the most, mate?
Everything. every footstep's a new turn.
There's a lot of latent infrastructure in the Cobar, so I'd be I'm supportive of your outlook.
Well, I've got land bones going to be revisited. You've got the Dunbelbo, I think. Trying to think that.
God, I've been there. My first ever job was with Straits Resources at Hillgrove, and we actually went down with the foreman down to Nyngan just as they were sinking the raise bore at Duralambone when they were first going in there. So I've actually been there.
Yeah. Well, back in the 70s, I was a student out of Broken Hill, and the boss took us out to Cobar, told us to do wheelies out in the bush, and it turned out to be drill pads for CSA.
Oh, really? Wow. You reckon there's another CSA out there?
Yep, there is.
Really? Why haven't they found it?
They're still looking. You've got Federation and
Yep. That looks pretty good.
Hera.
Yeah.
The guy kicked an ant's nest and found exposed gold. They drilled it and they found massive gold deposits underneath the feet. All the drilled holes were pointing north-south. These ones went east-west.
Yeah, right. Is CSA, is that a VMS deposit?
Not sure.
I think it might be. God, imagine how much a bloody ASX listed copper company would go off if they found a CSA or a DeGrussa equivalent or a Nova or something. Probably not Nova because it's more nickel, but if they found like a rich copper mine in Australia, because the big porphyry systems don't really cut the mustard in the market at the moment because of the capital, but those high grade VMS deposits are just an absolute sweet spot. Pretty cheap to build and print cash.
Love that. That's so good. Well,
so I've got a bit of geology in me, Jess. Don't worry about me, mate.
You're dumb, but look at you just throwing it out at the end there.
Couple of bloody. Usually, I'll snuck a beer in. It gives me a bit of creative thinking.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. I'm conscious of how much of your time I've taken up today, but it's been really, really fun having you on. To finish it up, I was curious what car you all drive.
You got to start with Maddie on this one.
I actually, because since
Maddie's the only one to speak here.
No, since we come into West Perth and got an office, I'm like, I can't drive in what I had because I actually had an AU Falcon. It was that was like because all I used it for when I was FIFO, I was driving to and from the airport, and it she was an absolute beast. It's probably still it'll go for another 20 years. So, but no, I'm a bit of a tight ass on cars. I'd rather spend it on beer and sports bet or something. I have more fun with that. So I ain't got a 2010 Kluger. I'm pretty basic. So hey, if this podcast ever goes right off, I'll get a Tesla or a BYD, I reckon.
I crashed my car in 2017, and I had it was a Holden Commie. It was a bright red one like you get as a bogan born in the country. It was like a VE body. It was brilliant. Anyway, when I wrote it off, I was super bullish. I was like self-autonomous driving, and I was like, I'm going to make it my mission to never need to own a car again because cars will soon be autonomous. You're not going to need to. Like Uber's going to be so cheap because there's going to be no labour associated with it. And I've basically found a way to scab someone else's car ever since, be it, families or my partners or my friends who don't need it at that point in time. So I haven't owned a car since 2017.
This show would not ever be where it is today if it wasn't for Trav, because even the simple thing of whether to buy a car or not takes hours, hundreds of hours of research to make that decision. That is the foundation of the attention to detail in this show.
I'm in a similar boat to Trav there, minus the crash. I do not own a car, so can't comment.
Now, Jess, I actually want to finish off with something else. Are you ready?
Okay.
And now, ASAP Science presents the elements of the periodic table.
There's hydrogen and helium, then
lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon.
Nitrogen all through the
I don't know the lyrics, so I'm just watching the YouTube video.
It goes way too quick. I can't keep up.
I didn't know this is a good song.
Potassium, so you'll grow strong.
Mate, we've got to get this cranking on a show one day.
Oh, no. Geez, you won't be able to... You've got a copyright on your video now. You won't be able to monetize it on YouTube.
No, I turned all the ads off. No ads.
So did we. It pisses everyone off. Tried it at the start because the boys knew I was poor, but they won me over. So it's been a journey. I'll put the two of them through hell in the last year. So
Oh, well, thanks all of you for coming on. It's been really fun chatting with you today. And yeah, it was fun to pick your brain. So thank you for that.
Oh, mate. We are flattered you'd have us on because we're not geo people. And yeah, thanks very much for having us. We're really enjoyed it. Good fun.
It was heaps of fun.
Thanks, Jess.
Can't wait for
Thanks,
all the
everyone.
abuse
Cheers,
on social media because there's going to be some haters, no doubt.
Give it a hooteroo.
Love you
Jess.
all if you're listening.
Let it rip.
You're a legend. Have a good night. Thanks, everyone.
Hooteroo.